Teak 2b is in the linear category, and it's our first of two writing linear equations teaks. This teak states that students are expected to write linear equations in two variables in various forms, including slope-intercept form, standard form, and point-slope form, given 1 point and the slope, and given 2 points. So we have multiple versions of how we could write the output here, and multiple things that could be given as the stimulus. Now, when we're given 1 point and the slope, we're actually going to look at our formula chart and use a type of equation called point-slope form, point-slope, which from our formula chart is written as y minus y1 equal to m times x minus x1. Our slope represents the m because that's always going to be representing our slope. It's a moving number. And we're only going to have to fill in another point, which is why this is called point-slope form. You just need a point and some slopes. Well, I'm given a point here on the side. I'm given -2 and 2. That's my x and y, and I'm totally given my slope, which means all I have to do is put those pieces where they belong. y1, sorry, I labeled this wrong. This is x and y. Y minus y1 equal to m x minus x1. Now the the minus sign is already in this formula, here and here. So I cannot change that part. If I'm plugging in another negative number, I'm going to have negative times negative, which is more simply just a positive. Now sometimes with this teak, it's going to stop here and just have them write it in point-slope form. Y minus 2 equal to 1/2 times x plus 2. Or we might ask them to write it in slope-intercept form, which means I'm going to need to distribute this one -1/2, which would give me -1/2 x. -1/2 times a positive 2 is a -1. And the very last step is for me to just add a 2 to both sides so that the y is by itself. I'd have y equal to -1/2 x plus 1. Combining my like terms together here since they're constants. So both of these, the blue equation in point-slope form and the red equation in slope-intercept form, are equivalent, which means the same. Either of them are valid options as answers, just depending on what the question is asking for. Now, as opposed to just being given a point and a slope, I could also just be given those 2 points. Well, we already looked at some videos here that talk about finding the slope from 2 points. We label them x1, y1 and x2, y2. I then have a slope formula to find my slope from the formula chart. This is going to be 5 minus 3 and 1, wow, I did that wrong. 5 minus 1, y2 minus y1, over x2 minus x1. 5 minus 1 is 4, 3 minus 1 is 2, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Well, now I have a slope and I have a point. I can use that point-slope formula from my formula chart. Y minus y1 equal to m x minus x1. You filling in this number, and this number. The x and the y without the subscripts stay. And we're going to fill this in. So we'd have y minus y1, which is 1, equal to m x minus x1. And now I've written an equation in point-slope form. If I needed to write it in slope-intercept form, I would follow the steps from the previous slide, distributing and moving over the constant next to the y. Now, all of these forms of standard equations are on your formula chart. You're going to see most of these questions require the use of point-slope form because we're going to be given a point and a slope, or points that we can then find slopes from. But sometimes your answer choices will be written in slope-intercept form, so we have to rearrange. These are all on the formula chart so students can look them up and make sure they put the pieces where they belong. So an example that we might see from a STAR test is something like this. It says, what is the equation in slope-intercept form? That seems like a vocabulary word, and it is. So really quickly we just say, okay, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Of the line that passes through the points -4, 2 and 12, 6. Well, I have 2 points and I need to write an equation. The first thing I need to write an equation is a slope. So we'll label this one x1, y2, or y1. Oh, mine's doing that. and x2, y2. My slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Subtracting a negative, or minus a minus, is a positive. So really this is 6 minus 2 over 12 plus 4, which reduces to 1/4. Now if I quickly look at my answer choices, I'll see that they're using decimals. Not my favorite. Fractions are better because they tell me rises and runs, but really we can use this as 0.25. This is the same thing as a fourth, so I know my slope. All I have to do is plug it into the formula. We would check the formula chart to see that point slope form is y minus y1 equal to m x minus x1. Plug the pieces where they belong. They're already all labeled. We'd have y minus y1, which is 2, equal to m x minus x1. But subtracting a negative is not wrong, just confusing. It's plus 4. Now, my answer choices are not written in point slope form, so I do have to do the extra step of distributing the 1/4. So I distribute, and 1/4 times x is 1/4 x, and 1/4 times 4 is positive 1. Bring down the left side of the equation. I'm going to add 2 to both sides so that I have isolated the y, gotten the y by itself, which matches my slope-intercept form equation, y equals mx plus b. Now, it doesn't technically match one of the answer choices, but we already established that 1/4 is the same as 0.25, so 0.25x plus 3 is the same equation, just not written in fraction form. As always, remember, we empower, we impact, we love, we are Skeeter Nation.